Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Let me start with some background because it's important for understanding what happened later. I'm a 30-year-old guy with autism, Tourette's syndrome, obsessive compulsive disorder, and depression. When I was little, doctors misdiagnosed me with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder instead. I found out later that apparently doctors would rather tell parents their 3 to 5-year-old has attention problems than depression. Makes sense, I guess. Because of my Tourette's, I blink and squint my eyes a lot. I also have vocal tics like grunting, chirping, repeating words, and changing my voice randomly. It's not the kind where people swear uncontrollably. That's a different form of the syndrome. People tell me I'm well spoken for someone with autism, but that's because I'm high functioning, and I put in a lot of effort to communicate properly. I'm pretty reclusive. I don't really do much besides work and go home. I don't hang out with people. I work at a gas station, and I won't mention the name since I still work there. And in my state, my boss can fire me for talking about work online. They have a hard time firing me though, since I do everything from maintenance to information technology when needed. This way they don't have to pay someone else to do it. This actually got me promoted to manager, and I'm currently working toward getting a job in their information technology department. I'm also 6 foot 3 inches tall, weigh about 320 pounds, and I used to play football. Needless to say, I'm a big guy. I'm also kind of a jerk since working customer service anywhere means you see the ugly side of people more than anything else. Now for the story. It had been a very busy day. The lottery was selling like crazy since the jackpot was at $600 million, and the other one was at $470 million at the time this happened. Just in 1 hour, I sold almost $1,000 in lottery tickets alone. We label our lottery as online tickets or scratch-offs, and it was the online tickets that were selling like crazy. It was about 4 p.m. and I had a line of around 5 to 7 customers, mostly regulars heading to work. That's when she walked in. I don't know if it was because it was January or because she was such an entitled woman, but I felt a blast of cold air and had to put my jacket on. She walked between people without ever saying "excuse me" and didn't even say hello when I greeted her. She walked right up to the scratch-off tickets to look at them. We don't have an electronic dispenser at my store since we don't sell enough lottery normally. This day was only busy because my store allows lottery purchases on credit or debit cards. I checked out a few customers, and once I reached the last 2 in line, 5 more people walked in. When I started ringing up the next customer, she loudly demanded to know if I was going to help her or ignore her. Being a bit of a jerk, I didn't care for her tone at all. I told her that if she wanted lottery tickets, she had to get in line like everyone else since my register wasn't where she was standing. She snapped back that I shouldn't talk to customers that way. I replied that customers get in line. She argued that she was there before the other people came in. I corrected her saying she actually wasn't, and repeated that she had to be in line. Realizing I wouldn't budge, she exclaimed before getting in line that I better not sell tickets 13, 14, or 17 because those were her tickets. I apologized to the regular customer I was serving for the disruption. The regular customer just laughed and said it was fine. He asked for an online ticket, then an evil smirk crossed his face. He asked if I could also get him scratch-offs numbered 13, 14, and 17. She was on her phone and didn't pay attention. Probably on social media ranting about my audacity. I should mention that numbers and marks on scratch-offs mean nothing. Odds are nationwide, not just at my store. The regular customer left, and after about 7 to 10 minutes, I finally reached her. She asked for her scratch-offs. I got them and rang them up when the regular customer came back in with an even bigger grin than before. She complained that I sold her the wrong tickets. I explained that I sold her the next ones in the books. She insisted that wasn't true, saying she always looked to see what numbers they were and if they had a white mark, and these weren't the next in the book. Then she asked if I had sold her tickets to someone else. I told her it was first come, first serve, and no reservations were made. She demanded to speak to my manager. I opened my jacket to reveal my name tag that clearly said manager and told her I was the manager. She said fine and demanded the corporate office number. I gave her the number, and when she left my counter to rant to whatever unlucky person would listen, the regular customer came up still grinning, almost laughing. The regular customer announced loudly that the number 14 ticket he bought was a $200 winner, and he was cashing it in and calling into work. She heard this and screamed that it was her $200. He calmly said that since he bought the ticket, it was his $200. She handed him a $5 bill, which was the cost of the ticket. He thanked her, pocketed the money, and brought the winning ticket to me to cash. She looked smug, thinking she'd solved the problem. When I handed him the $200 and he pocketed it and started to leave, she screeched like a banshee, demanding her $200. He repeated that since he bought the ticket, it was his $200. She protested that she had given him money for the ticket. He pointed out that all she did was say here and give him $5, which was basically a gift if she didn't tell him what it was for. He asked who would trade $5 for $200. She threatened to call the cops. I asked why since she was in the wrong. She accused both of us of being drug addicts. I asked how the hell she thought that. She said it was obvious I did drugs because of how much I blinked. I told her I had Tourette's syndrome. She called it a lie, saying it wasn't real and was just an excuse to cuss at people. She also used a slur to suggest I was intellectually disabled. She grabbed the regular customer's shirt and he swatted her hand away. By now there were more people in the store and she started to cry, then scream that he assaulted her. I looked her dead in the face and told her to leave because she had assaulted him and was trespassing. She started to scream louder, so I just called the cops. The first officer arrived about 10 minutes after I called and took her outside. The second officer arrived just a few seconds later and came inside. He asked what happened, and me, the regular customer, and some others who saw most of it, explained everything. The first officer came back in and asked if the regular customer had assaulted her. I said no, explaining that she lunged at him and grabbed him, and he swatted her hand away. The other witnesses agreed with our version of events, and both officers watched our security camera footage. Trying to lighten the mood with a joke, I mentioned that she even thought I was a drug addict because I have Tourette's. The second officer asked if I had told her about my condition. I confirmed that I had. After the cops watched the camera footage, they said they were also charging her with a hate crime for what she said about my disability. The first officer noted that she said the regular customer stole $5, but after seeing the footage, it looked like a gift. Once everything was said and done, she went to jail on several charges. The regular customer bought another $5 scratch-off with the bill she gave him, let me scratch it, and of course it won nothing. The next day I went into work and found out she had called the main office, but they wrote her off as a crazy person. One of my other regular customers is a police officer and he watches out for us. He told me she ended up getting a drug charge too since she was under the influence during the incident, which wasn't really a shock. He said she'd probably be locked up for a decent amount of time, but nothing would be known for sure until she went before a judge. After the initial rush from the whole situation, I reached the point where I didn't really care about it anymore. I hope she gets help, but she's an adult who can make her own decisions, whether they're good or bad. When it doesn't bother me, I'm good. I work as a security officer with a private investigator certification for about 8 years now. My job lets me take private investigator cases as long as they don't mess with police investigations. And if I see any crimes, I have to report them to the cops right away so they can make arrests. Most of my work comes from 3 main sources. Sometimes the local police hire us for what they call spotter work, where we help with big investigations by doing reconnaissance. We're basically extra eyes and ears, but we don't interact with anything directly. The police also bring us in for surveillance operations where we follow people and report what they do day to day. These jobs are completely confidential. Then there are corporate contracts. Companies hire our investigation unit to watch their employees during work hours to see if anyone's breaking the law on company time. We gather evidence to prove if someone's guilty or innocent. These aren't confidential, but we usually sign agreements not to talk about them. Finally, there are personal contracts. These are when regular people hire us. Usually it's someone who thinks their spouse is cheating and wants proof, or someone looking for lost family members. There's no disclosure agreement unless the client makes one, but we keep quiet anyway as professional courtesy. My story starts about 3 years ago when I got hired for a personal contract that turned into the most satisfying case of my career. The client was this rich guy who was basically the definition of a sleazy snob. He had stupid amounts of money and acted like he was better than everyone else. He hired my 5-person unit because he thought his wife was cheating on him with other people. He wanted solid proof so he could start divorce proceedings with evidence in his favor. He signed a 6-month contract and was supposed to pay our company a huge sum when we finished the job. The way our payment works is pretty standard. The client pays a small portion upfront as a commission fee, and the rest gets paid at the end of the contract period. The commission gets divided between all the private investigators as a bonus to our regular salary, and when the client pays the final balance, it gets split between completion bonuses for us and a cut for the office. So we set up surveillance cameras all over his massive house and in his wife's car with his permission. We had at least one team member following her at all times. In this line of work, you either get emotionally detached or you get invested like you're watching a soap opera. When we watched their lives unfold, we quickly realized this woman was basically a saint. She volunteered at a soup kitchen twice a week and spent time at the children's hospital reading to sick kids. She helped organize canned food drives for local churches and was always doing something to help other people. She was honestly the perfect example of what a good human being should be. Her husband, on the other hand, was a complete piece of work. He was the one we caught bringing women to the house multiple times. Sometimes he'd bring 2 or 3 different women in one day, and that was just what we recorded at the house. We had no idea what he was doing when he went out. After 4 months, we reached the point where we show all our evidence and give what we call the 3/4 report. We sat down with him for a 6-hour meeting with video and audio evidence showing him that his wife hadn't done anything wrong except get a speeding ticket and double park a few times. When we finished the presentation, he just sat there looking completely confused. He asked us what the point of hiring us was if we didn't catch her cheating. My boss, who's our captain, gave him the most serious stare I've ever seen on that man's face. The captain asked him if he was really unhappy that his wife turned out to be an honest and faithful woman. The guy got visibly annoyed and stood up to grab his jacket. My captain told him there were still 2 months left on the contract and that we could keep following her until the contract ended. The client said not to bother because he was ending it right then and there. He told us to come get our equipment when she wasn't home. So, a week later, that's exactly what we did. Fast forward to the next payday after the contract officially ended. Our unit got called into the office for an emergency meeting about us and the last contract. We got there and found out the guy had pulled all funding and refused to pay us for our work. We still got our regular salaries, just not the completion bonus we'd been counting on. We all left feeling completely screwed over. We went to lunch and started brainstorming ways to get even with this jerk. That's when we remembered all the house footage of his affairs. At first, someone suggested blackmailing him, but we're better than that. Then I remembered his wife and how genuinely good she seemed. I decided to reach out to her. I called and set up a meeting to explain everything. When I showed her the videos, she cried for a good half hour. I felt terrible. I think I completely shattered her world. It was gut-wrenching to watch. After she calmed down, I told her she should get a lawyer and gave her all the evidence we'd collected along with my business card. About 6 months later, I got called into court because our company was suing him for fraud, breach of contract, and unpaid dues. We won the case easily. His lawyer argued that we failed to deliver the result he wanted, but we weren't hired to deliver a specific product. We were hired to observe and report, which is exactly what we did. We finally got paid. A few weeks after that, his wife contacted me to thank me for all the evidence. She'd gotten her divorce, and because of everything I gave her, she got almost everything in the settlement: his huge house, both cars, and a massive cash payout. About a year later, I got curious about how she was doing. I managed to get in touch with her, and we agreed to meet at a local coffee shop. She was thrilled to hear from me. When I got there, I met her new husband, who seemed like a genuinely nice guy. She'd had 2 daughters since the divorce, both adorable and incredibly well-behaved, and she was pregnant with her 3rd child, a boy. She had been remarried for almost 2 years and looked happier than I'd ever seen her. After we caught up over coffee, she told me her own revenge story. She explained how right after the divorce hearing, her ex-husband's family had demanded she give them the house back because it was their ancestral family home. They offered to buy it from her for only $250,000, but she had a realtor evaluate it who said it was worth about $1.5 million. The family kept demanding she sell to them over the next few months. So she told them about the realtor's appraisal, but she may have stretched the truth a little. She told them the house was appraised at $5 million and that she was going to put it on the market for that price. But since they were like family, she said she'd give them a discount and sell it to them for $3.5 million. She told me they showed up the next day with cash in hand and bought the house for that inflated price. When we were wrapping up our conversation, she reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet. I thought she was going to try to give me money, so I raised my hand to stop her. She smiled and pulled out my old business card instead. She explained that she'd tried to call me and my company a year ago to thank me, but the number was disconnected. She asked if I could update my contact information for her. When I asked why she wanted it, she told me I was the kind of person she liked. She said I had looked out for her when she needed it, and she wanted to keep me in her back pocket just in case. I updated my contact information for her, and she invited my family to their home for dinner that Friday. The next morning, I got an amazing call from my boss. He was extremely excited and told me that we had a new client who had offered me specifically a 5-year employment contract. It turns out the wife's new husband is a magistrate, and he'd gotten his boss to approve a contract for our company with the provision that I would oversee it as the new captain. The unit I'd be running would take job assignments directly from the court. So thanks to one entitled husband who tried to cheat us out of our payment, I not only helped a genuinely good person escape a terrible marriage, but I also ended up with a high-profile, well-paying position that would set up my career for years to come. That sleazy husband lost everything: his wife, his house, his cars, a huge chunk of his money, and probably his family's respect after they found out they'd been conned into overpaying for their own ancestral home. I work for a consulting firm that sends people all over the world on long-term assignments. I'm what you'd call a field specialist when companies need someone to handle complex operations in challenging locations, they call us. It's demanding work, but I love the travel and the variety. Each mission teaches you something new about how business actually works in different parts of the world. I had just gotten back from a 3-month assignment in Indonesia. It was one of those projects where everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but somehow we still managed to pull it off. The client was happy, the local partners were satisfied, and I was exhausted. All I wanted was to finish my paperwork and take some well-deserved vacation time. The company requires detailed reports after every international assignment. It's tedious but necessary. Future teams need to know what worked, what didn't, and what local customs they should expect. I had about 3 days of writing left before I could officially go on leave. I was looking forward to sleeping in my own bed and eating food that didn't make my stomach question my life choices. That's when I got the email. The subject line read Mandatory Attendance, Company Ethics and Values Seminar. It was from someone in human resources I'd never heard of before. The email was full of corporate speak about reinforcing shared values and maintaining commitment to ethical excellence. I rolled my eyes and deleted it. I don't usually skip company meetings, but this felt different. I've been working 16-hour days in tropical heat, dealing with corrupt officials and impossible deadlines. The last thing I needed was to sit through a PowerPoint presentation about ethics from someone who'd probably never left the office building. I sent back a polite decline, explaining that I was on a tight deadline to finish my mission reports before my scheduled leave. The next morning, another email appeared in my inbox. This time, the tone was different. It advised that attendance at the ethics seminar was mandatory for all employees currently in the office and warned that failure to attend could result in disciplinary action. I stared at the screen for a moment, then shrugged and went back to my reports. I had real work to do. Around 10 in the morning, I heard footsteps approaching my cubicle. I looked up to see a woman in her 30s wearing a stern expression and a badge that read, Karen, Human Resources Coordinator. She told me I needed to come to the conference room right away. I explained that I was working on my mission reports and they were due before my leave. She insisted the ethics seminar was mandatory and reminded me she'd sent 2 emails about it. I pointed out that I'd responded saying I couldn't attend because of my deadlines. She argued that my deadlines didn't excuse me from company policy and said everyone else had managed to make time. I could see this wasn't going anywhere productive. I saved my work, grabbed a notebook, and followed her to the conference room. About 20 other employees were already seated, looking about as thrilled as I felt. The presentation had already started. A different human resources person was clicking through slides about company values and building trust with clients. I tried to focus on my notes for the Indonesia report, but Karen kept shooting me disapproving looks. After about 30 minutes of generic corporate messaging, we reached a slide titled Ethical Challenges in International Business. The presenter, a guy who looked like he'd never been outside the city, started talking about the importance of refusing bribes and maintaining integrity in all business dealings. Then Karen took over. She emphasized how important this was for those who worked internationally and asked what we should do if someone offered us a bribe. Various people gave the expected answers about refusing and reporting the incident. She agreed enthusiastically and then asked about offering incentives to get things done, calling it equally unethical and potentially illegal. She clicked to the next slide, which showed a big red X over a cartoon businessman handing money to an official. She reminded us that we never compromise our values, no matter how difficult the local conditions might be, and insisted there was always an ethical way to handle any situation. I smiled a little. The gap between corporate policy and field reality was always amusing. Karen noticed my expression and asked if something was funny about the topic. I said it was nothing really. She pressed me to share with the group what exactly I found amusing about business ethics. The room went quiet. Everyone was looking at me now. I could have just apologized and moved on, but something about her condescending tone bothered me. I asked if we were supposed to offer incentives to complete our missions. She responded absolutely not, reminding me that they'd just covered this in the presentation and it was completely against company policy. I agreed that was what I thought. I pulled out my phone and opened my WhatsApp conversation with the missions manager. He was about 4 levels above Karen in the company hierarchy and someone who actually understood how international business worked. I quickly copied a section of our conversation from a few weeks ago and sent it to Karen's email. I told her I'd just sent her something she might find interesting. Karen looked confused but opened her laptop. The screen behind her was connected to her computer, so when she opened the email, everyone in the room could see it. The message thread started with my question to the missions manager about a problem I'd encountered in Indonesia. I had rented a car but couldn't always get a driver, and I was stuck at the hotel over the weekend. I needed to get an Indonesian driving license to drive myself. The conversation showed how I'd explained to the missions manager that while you could technically use your home license to get an Indonesian one, the reality was different. The local officials saw foreign business people as opportunities to make extra money. They'd make you wait months and jump through unnecessary hoops unless you provided what they called processing fees, essentially a bribe of about $130. The missions manager's response was clear and simple. He told me to do what I needed to do. When I asked how to put it through expenses, he suggested calling it a team-building exercise and making a fake receipt. So I did. I created a receipt for 4 steak dinners with wine and beer. I printed it out, crumpled it up to make it look used, then scanned it back in. It looked completely legitimate. The missions manager had approved it, writing that it looked good to him. Karen went through several color changes while she read. The room was completely silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Behind her, the 70-inch screen displayed our entire conversation for everyone to see. She looked up at the room, then back at her laptop, then at me. Every person in that conference room was now smiling or trying very hard not to laugh. Karen announced they would break for coffee. I closed my notebook and walked out. I didn't come back to the conference room, and Karen didn't come looking for me. I spent the rest of the day finishing my reports in peace. 2 days later, I submitted my completed paperwork and officially went on vacation. When I returned 3 weeks later, I noticed that the mandatory ethics seminars had been quietly discontinued. I also heard through the office grapevine that Karen had been reassigned to different responsibilities. The missions manager stopped by my desk a few days after I got back. He mentioned he'd heard about my presentation to Human Resources. I told him it wasn't exactly planned. He laughed and walked away. I never got any official feedback about my disruption of the ethics seminar, but I did notice that future company policy presentations included more nuanced discussions about local business practices and contextual decision-making. I still do international assignments, and I still deal with the gap between corporate ideals and field realities. But now when I get emails about mandatory training sessions, I find that people are a lot more flexible about accommodating my schedule. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.